There is a balance in white ball cricket that has been built into the game. I mean, think about this. At one stage, someone was coming up with the playing conditions and they were like, I want someone to bowl no more than 20% of the overs. It could have been 25%. You know, it could have been any number at all. And they went with 20%, which meant that we had to have 5 bowlers. There are lots of first-class teams around the world that only have 4. And yet, in white ball cricket, it has to be 5, which means that there's always a balance there between batting and bowling.
This is the last knock. My dad refuses to tell me what this means.
And it usually means that a team goes in with slightly weaker batting and slightly weaker bowling. And we've seen some great white ball teams over the years that have had that weakness. Australia won some World Cups with that weakness. And that's because there aren't many frontline all-rounders in the world. It is desperately hard to find a frontline all-rounder in any form of cricket once you get to the top level. Generally, that's when the specialists take over. Put it this way, Cricinfo recently did a very big article looking at the greatest all-rounders in red ball cricket and in one-day cricket. And in ODIs, they had Viv Richards as the 4th best all-rounder of all time. Now, if you don't know, Viv Richards was probably the greatest one-day batter of all time, even to this day. There's almost no doubt about that. He was so much quicker than everyone else in his era, while also averaging a stupendous amount. But he couldn't really bowl. I mean, he could bowl enough as a part-timer, but he was expensive for his era, didn't take that many wickets, and didn't bowl in about a third of his games. And yet, when you're looking at great all-rounders, he always comes up. It's not just this article, I've done the same thing. That's because there just aren't that many great all-rounders. Generally, if a player is really good in one part of the game, they're not very good in the other part of the game, or they're just okay enough in both parts of the game. It means that finding an all-rounder for your T20 franchise is really tough. Finding 2 all-rounders is extraordinarily tough. Chennai found 4. I don't have the definitive list on who are the best all-rounders in the world. I'm certainly not going to look at the ICC's international rankings because I'd probably want to start with domestic players first anyway. But I think if we did have that list, I think there'd be a fair chance of Moeen Ali, Ravi Jadeja, Dwayne Bravo, and Sam Curran being on that list or thereabout. In fact, Lord Takua would also be not that far away from this list. Chennai had them all. And I'm sure you're sitting there going, wow, he says all-rounders, but are they really all-rounders? I've got views on these players. By true all-rounders, what I'm really saying is, in a T20 sense, they should be able to bowl at least 2 to 3 overs per game locked on. And with their batting, they should be able to bat in the top 7. They don't have to do either of those roles because they might not be needed for them, but that's what they should be able to do in any game. And when I mention that, probably the first player you think of is maybe Dwayne Bravo. And you might be thinking about his batting a little bit and thinking, wow, he's not the batter he used to be. And he's not the batter he used to be. I don't know how much you know about Dwayne Bravo, but he once made a test 100 in an attack that had Glenn McGrath and Shane Warne. Dwayne Bravo was a proper batter, but he's now very old and he's not the player he used to be. But he's had a bit of a renaissance with the bat this year. And just this year alone in T20 cricket, he's been averaging 24 with the bat and a strike rate of 128. If that's your 7th best batter and he also bowls, that's more than enough for him to be in your top 7 and you're not losing that much, especially because he's quite good at hitting at the end when he needs to. And this is what I'm talking about with Chennai. There was a game this year where Dwayne Bravo, the man who made 100 against Glenn McGrath and Shane Warne, the man who's made a lot of runs, who's batted as high as 6 for some teams, probably even 5 at times, has been a pinch hitter, has done all the roles and played in, over 500 T20 games. That Dwayne Bravo that I'm talking about has batted at number 9 for Chennai. I don't need to, but I'm going to anyway, tell you about the fact that Jai Richardson and Chris Jordan have batted at number 7 in this tournament at times. Teams have put random guys at number 5 and number 6 just because they had to fill the slot. And yet Dwayne Bravo has batted at number 9 for Chennai. The depth that gives their batting is extraordinary. And in that game that Dwayne Bravo batted at number 9, Lord Takor was behind him. Even Deepak Chahar was behind him. They basically batted all the way down to 11, or at least hit the ball all the way down to 11. And that's the dream. That's what T20 teams want to be able to do. And we have seen this before. Perhaps the most famous example of this was England. They had Adil Rashid batting at number 11. Adil Rashid has more than 10 first-class hundreds. Him batting at number 11 in any game of cricket is ridiculous. But the whole situation for England was completely different. That was an international team. They produced that talent. They had it available to them. That wasn't a franchise where they're going up against other teams that was supposed to be a level playing field with an auction and all these sorts of things and right to match and retaining. No. England just produced a lot of great all-round talent and then worked out it was the best way forward and backed it. And even when you look at that 2016 England side with Adil Rashid at number 11, they still had Chris Jordan at number 8. Chris Jordan is a handy batter, but his batting talent is nowhere near what Dwayne Bravo's is. And that's where Bravo was scheduled to bat for Chennai in this game. even though he has actually batted at 9, as I've said. But with that all-round talent, England still made the World Cup final with that, and realistically went within a Carlos Brathwaite over of, winning the whole thing. And when you look around as well, there's a few other teams that have certainly done something similar before. Nottingham did it in the Blast, Trinbago did it in the CPL, and generally those teams go on to be massively successful. Because if you can fit that much all-round talent into your team, it's, a huge bonus. But just also on the England side, they didn't really have 5 frontline bowlers. What they had was probably 4 outright frontline bowlers, and at that stage Moeen Ali was their 5th bowler, but maybe more of a 6th bowler, and Ben Stokes was also a 5th bowler at times, who was also more of a 6th bowler, as again Carlos Brathwaite may have proven. If Googlies, quarter seamer, Karen, Dukes, back of the hand, red, leg cutters, Teesra, pink, knuckle, white, slider, seed, heavy, bouncers, cherry, length, pill, off cutters, old, crimson traveller, kookaburra, hard, outswing, second new, off spin, arm, SG, split finger, shiny, leg spin, soft, new, Yorkers, flippers, wrong-uns, long hops, reverse swing, half volley, and third new. These are just some of the names we use for balls in cricket. Well, Manscaped wants you to be as proud of your balls as you are of the ones delivered by your favourite cricketer. Manscaped just launched their 4th generation trimmer, the Lawnmower 4.0. Join over 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer, 20% off and free worldwide shipping. Insert the code REDINKA at manscaped.com. I've actually used this, not just something that I'm hawking for fun, and I got to admit, I thought it was a bit silly, and then I went down there, and it was exceptional. I honestly feel I could bowl outswing with one nut and inswing with the other. So get 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code REDINKA at manscaped.com. Manscaped, for the man who cares about his balls as much as the ones out in the middle. If you look at this lineup, because Ravi Jadeja can bat in the top 7, that means they have 5 frontline bowlers in their top 7. Moeen Ali's bowling is just like a bonus. It's a cherry literally on top. But let's just focus on Moeen Ali for a moment here. In 2018, when Bangalore was asking me to help out with the auction, they said, is there any player here who we're probably not that high on that we should be definitely hiring? I said Moeen Ali. Moeen Ali in 2018 should have already been in the IPL. Anyone paying attention to what he'd done in the Blast, forget what he'd ever done for England as an international player, would definitely have got him along. There are just not many players with Moeen Ali's talent. Sadly, Bangalore did get him and just kind of misused him for a long time. Chennai have used him absolutely perfectly. And Moeen Ali obviously made runs today, but I don't want to talk about all of his good shots. I want to talk about one of his worst shots. First ball. This is what is great about Moeen Ali. He comes out first ball and he swings at the ball. He mishits a ball over cover. Goes nowhere, completely cloths it, but he's willing to swing from the first ball, despite the fact he's a top order batter. And that's because he backs himself as a bowler, because he's unselfish also as a hitter, also because of the way their team is and it bats so long. It's a perfect environment for Moeen Ali to come out and just be Moeen Ali. And then there is the bonus of his bowling. The thing with his bowling is, if you're using him as purely as a 5th bowler and you have to get 4 overs every game, the matchups aren't going to dictate the best thing. He's a very good bowler in certain conditions against certain types of players. And in those conditions, he's almost unplayable. And he had a great season when he's used perfectly. That's why he is the ideal 6th bowler. He's a brilliant 6th bowler for them. He fits incredibly well into this team. And any overs you get out of your top 4 is a bonus. And we saw what happens when he starts to hit the ball. He's just a magnificent ball striker. And because he's hit the ball so well for so many years, there's a bit of a fear factor with him as well. It's not like Andre Russell or Kyron Pollard, but when Moeen Ali is batting, that something could happen. Let's talk about Ravi Jadeja here, the most all-rounderish of the all-rounders here. In fact, he can field as well, so even more so. His bowling is a bit up and down. He has very, very good years, he has mediocre years, and he has terrible years. This year, though, he took wickets and didn't go for many runs. That's about all you can ask for from him. But his bowling is a bit of a one-trick pony. He basically just tries to bowl faster and skid the ball through if he's getting hit, and he obviously literally can't spin the ball the other way. So he's a little bit limited there. But he's still a very good 5th bowler, especially when you have a backup bowler who spins the ball the other way to him. But as a batter, he's just really developed his game and is now one of the best death hitters in the world. In fact, in the IPL in the last 2 years, he's got the 5th best strike rate of any bowler at the death. He's scoring at 2 runs a ball. That is huge. I mean, if he was once a bits and pieces player, and to be fair, Sanjay was probably fairly right at that time, he's now complete solid unit of a player. And he didn't even have that good of a game, but he still took a bunch of catches and of course got Dinesh Karthik out, which realistically was probably Kolkata's last chance of winning that game. That's the thing with all-rounders. They're generally always around. Dwayne Bravo is the king of the death in that he's probably seen more death balls than have actually been bowled or batted against. He's just always there bowling and he's always there batting. Occasionally as a bowler he'll go for a lot of runs, but he takes so many wickets that he usually makes up for that. And this year, and as I said, his batting has slipped, and to be fair, Chennai didn't really need his batting or Lord Thakur's batting that much at all. Of course, when Dwayne Bravo did bat, he made 47 runs from 18 balls in this tournament. That's good. I mean, if you compare him to number 8s from most franchises, he is a great number 8 batter. And if you compare him to number 9s, I know he only did it once, but still, he's a GOAT. And then there's Sam Curran, and you're probably thinking, wait a minute, this is all about how Chennai won the final, and Sam Curran didn't even play. I want to point out something really specific about Sam Curran. He allows you to understand just how good this team is. Usually, if you have a seam bowling all-rounder who has the skill to bat at number 7, although Curran obviously quite often batted at number 8 in this team, if you lose them, you can't replace them, you can't rebuild, you have to change how you play. We've seen teams at times in this tournament literally change their entire lineup because an all-rounder has not been available to them. Look at Mumbai, they never really recovered from the fact that Hardik couldn't bowl. But Chennai didn't have to worry about that because they have Dwayne Bravo in this squad. And he'd already been interchanging with Sam Curran, so they'd already used them depending on matchups, or they wanted extra death bowling, or they wanted pinch hitting at the top, or a left arm swing bowler, whatever they wanted out of those two they would use, which gave them great flexibility for a lineup because it also meant that the other overseas players could go to Ngidi or Hazelwood depending on what they needed there. And without Sam Curran, not only did they not worry about having to rejig their team, not only did it not upset their balance, they hardly noticed it. That wasn't the case when Andre Russell was out of Kolkata. That's not the case for Marcus Stoinis at Delhi. But this Chennai team is so well put together that they just had a backup in Dwayne Bravo and they just backed Josh Hazelwood more. It was incredible. And yes, I'm focusing on the all-rounders because I think that's what makes this team completely different. I think that's what takes them from being a very good T20 team to being an exceptional one. And sadly, with the mega auction and the right to remain and the right to retain and all those things, we don't know how much of this squad will be kept together. So we have to actually glorify what we've just seen, because Chennai weren't good last year and they were by far and away the best team all year this year. And I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that they had extra batting and extra bowling in each game. That's like a cheat code. But it's not the only thing that this team has. I mean, what a phenomenal thing they had at the top of their order. To find one opener in the kind of form that they did, even an overseas opener, is just rare. And Faf has been an average player for them for many years, and he just seems to be getting better and better. If this is what Faf is like when he's focusing on T20 cricket, then what a player he's going to be over the next couple of years. Because I don't know if you've seen him, but he still looks pretty fit. And then to back that up with another guy who made even more runs at a very, very similar rate. Neither of these guys went particularly slow. In fact, I think both of them can even bat slightly quicker than this going forward. To have two openers like Faf and Gaikwad together at the same time, it's like being struck by lightning, but by lightning I mean someone just giving you a lot of money. I mean, it is. I talked about the all-round thing being a cheat code, but it feels like having two openers in this form at the same time is actually legitimately cheating. And you add to this MS Dhoni, giving him extra bowling options. I mean, he's probably one of the few captains in the world that with 3 bowling options would come up with something quite good. He has the ability to make the most out of any bowling attack. Doesn't mean he's always going to win. Doesn't mean that, his captaincy is worth 20 runs or anything silly like that. What it means is that he has the ability to make average bowlers better, and he has the ability to squeeze out the most he can from limited talent. We didn't have limited talent with this bowling attack or with this batting lineup. He had the ability to, free ball it. He could go in any direction he wanted to. To give someone with his tactical brain that ability is just huge. That's a huge win for Chennai coaching staff like Stephen Fleming, whoever put this team together as a general manager, all those sorts of different things, whoever was involved in the decision making from the analysts, everyone, because they gave him all the options. They gave him an extra ace. They gave him 6 aces in the pack. I don't know why this ended up being a poker metaphor. The point is that having MS Dhoni is an advantage over other captains. How much of an advantage? I don't know. Giving a really good captain extra options is more of an advantage again. It's like giving a great songwriter who learned to make music on a piano a great orchestra behind him, I think. Talking about songwriters and pianos, it's also he still plays the hits. I mean, he literally almost never hit the ball at all the way through this year, but he still hit the ball for 6 when he was needed at the end of a game, which is, his greatest hit, I suppose. And at that point, that's enough to just remind people that MS Dhoni is still there. Owen Morgan never managed to do that. There was no fear coming into this last game of going up against Owen Morgan. And Owen Morgan can hit 6s, and Owen Morgan has dominated great bowlers before, but MS Dhoni just reminded everyone at the right time. It didn't matter, because he didn't even have to bat. but then he could wicket keep. And while he did drop an absolute sitter, he also did very well up at the stumps. In some ways, with MS Dhoni batting so well, it's almost like they built the perfect team around him to make it so that he didn't have to score that many runs. He just had to wicket keep captain and hit 1-6 to remind us all that he is still, in fact, MS Dhoni. And there are other parts of Chennai's lineup that I really like that can't even really focus on in a video like this, like Uthappa and Raina and Raidu being able to attack the spinners in the middle. You know, really go for it because they know they've got batters behind them. And also, they went with 2 new ball specialists, which I really like. They one of the few teams that seem to really have bowling at one end and at the other end more often than not. You know, and having Hazelwood and Sam Curran, but also Chahar, who's just a top quality player available for them. And the fact that they didn't have a genuine fast bowler or a wrist spinner when every other T20 team in the world is just going out. It's just, there's so many fun aspects to this Chennai team, even if they are, you know, figure spin dependent and a little bit one pace for their seamers. They're just fun. They do a lot of fun, weird things. They were a magnificent team to follow this year. And when I was asked before the final over on cricket.com who I thought would win, I said Chennai. And Avinash said, oh, I don't know, what about the toss? And I said, the toss is important to Kolkata. Chennai can win with or without the toss. They are just that much better than other teams. They're so good that the toss didn't matter. I don't want to say that they're inevitable, because they're not inevitable, but they've won a lot of titles at this stage, and that was including missing 2 seasons for the fixing thing. If they're not inevitable, then they're certainly consistent. And in T20 cricket, that's almost as good as being inevitable.